Okay, it's 11 o'clock. We are here, letter A on our agenda here is for the annual budget hearing for proposed fiscal year 24 budget. At this time, I will go down to number 1, which is the open hearing. We will have Marcy present information on the budget, and then we will move to public comment.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, let me get the document pulled up and I will present the budget today. For those of you with a agenda packet, if you wish to follow along, I guess our packet didn't get numbered this time. We're in about maybe 5 pages into the agenda packet. The first page that I would like to reference for you is, excuse me, the revenues. And this is general fund that we're going to talk about first. I want to make special note to the fact that this year is a balanced budget, meaning that our revenues and our expenditures are equal. Can we move that so we can see that bottom right-hand corner? Okay. Our revenues and our expenditures for general fund are equaling $33,287,921. When you look at this document and the breakout, we do have local sources. The 25 mil is the very first line item on there. And I share with you the 25 mil is a levy that as the district, we are obligated to levy based upon state statute. The tax assessed value is up 12.5% from last year to this year, thus the increase in the top 2 line items. When you look at that, the column I'm most interested in is the far right, that being the budget. The 2 columns over that being last year's budget, as well as where it was projected that last year's budget ended at. A couple of items on there that I think are worth notating in that first category. Interest is up substantially due to our increase in interest rates just in our national sector right now. If you go down to the next section, that being county sources, the 6 mil that we are obligated for the county commissioners to levy is included in that category. And then again, that's a result of the increase in tax assessment. The state sources that we look at are that third grouping. And in there last year through the legislative process, they made a decision to break out what we receive for reimbursable special education so that comes separate from the foundation guarantee in total. What we have to do if we wish to compare is we have to look at the foundation payments and the state SPED reimbursement. This year, the foundation payment is anticipated to be 14.7 million, and the state SPED reimbursement is anticipated to be 5.9 or 5.59. If you want to compare that to prior years, we would need to add those together. And last year, what was budgeted was 18.975. So it is going up, and the increase is a result of our increase of students. Last year, we saw an increase of 60 students. Each student is worth almost $20,000. So the last revenue category to look at, the other sources, that's the insurance that we've talked about repeatedly in regards to the Southeast Egg Shop. We still have revenue coming from that insurance proceeds. Approximately 1.2 million, revenues being 33.287. The next page that I have to share with you is a historical. Everyone is interested in the reserves of the district, as am I. That's important for us to have cash reserves. I'm projecting that our cash reserves will be 4,052,000 or 12.51%. We did speak throughout the last couple of meetings. We had that increase in insurance premiums of $600,000. That did decrease our reserves by about 2%. So when we look at the expenditures for the general fund, I'm not going to walk through each one of these line items. You all have been provided with the budget document. I'm going to move towards the end and focus on where the expenditures are for total. Per state statute, we're obligated to budget in each of these individual categories, and that's what I'm seeing as I scroll through. There again, the bottom district appropriations, $33,287,921. That's includes what was put together in regards to the salary and benefits package that was put forth and approved for next year for all employees of the district. So that's general fund. Special fund. Again, we're balanced $8,099,441 both revenues and expenditures. The revenues are a function of the various different grants that we're approved to receive, those being anywhere from your normal Title I, Title II, 6B, etc. We have the literacy grant, ESSER money, all of those kind of things in the federal sources category, and then the expenditures being the obligations for that revenue. And if you have any questions, please interrupt me. Major maintenance, that is the expenditures that we receive to take care of our buildings. The school facilities department provides this money quarterly. It sits in its own account. And as we have expenditure needs, those needs are presented to the school facilities department. And they approve or disapprove those expenditures. I've never had them tell us that we can't use it for that purpose. But it's important to note that we're looking at $2,130,000 and budgeting expenditures to equal that. The $2,110,000 is the allocation from the state. Capital construction is twofold. We do have a special reserve account having $480,000 in there, that being for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or any other kind of depreciation needs. And then we do have budgeted, hoping to get our demolition projects done, and those would be funded by the school facilities department, so the expenditures there being $766,250. The food service fund, we have revenue of $1.4 million and expenditures of $1.4 million. In the general fund, there was $50,000 in expenditures set aside to transfer to food service, and that's shown here as a transfer from general fund. That is right now earmarked with the thought process of being able to provide meals on Fridays with the 4-day school. Student activities are funds held in trust. These are monies that our kids fundraise for various different purposes. The money that is raised is turned around and used for the purposes that those dollars were intended for. We do have a cash balance in that account of $480,000, as well as what will be earned throughout the year with a budget of $1,119,500. The rec fund is one of the levies to be considered this afternoon. We have presently a 1 mil rec fund, 1 mil rec mill for the rec fund. This is set aside for the rec board to accept projects and in turn decision and approve the projects that can be funded with the dollars available. The 1 mil would earn us $292,830 based upon the tax assessed valuation that we presently have. And then finally, the BOCES fund is the second levy that has historically been at a $0.5 mil. The $0.5 mil would earn $146,419, and that is used through the EWC BOCES. There's a number of school districts that participate. That is where we fund dual and concurrent courses for the high school students, as well as driver's ed for the secondary students. So we have a cash balance in that account of $205,000. We're showing expenditures of $530,169. Are there any questions?
So that's strictly for the EWC BOCES. Do we contribute to the Gillette, the Northeast College? How does that work? I guess
that is a different BOCES, and we could choose to levy for that BOCES, but that one is more of a BOCES. It's more of a special ed consortium. This one is strictly higher education, and it's earmarked for those dual and concurrent purposes. It's spent with EWC, and if we have a student who needs a course that cannot be provided through EWC, they have granted us approval to work with other community colleges in the state for online courses.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
I had a question about our sources, but didn't want to interrupt you. You're going through everything.
Sure.
I understand the 6 mil that we're mandated to take, and the 25 mil. That's more or less what's available. We're supposed to budget keep it under that because that is the limit that we can take, but it's not mandatory. Is that correct?
The 25 mil is also stipulated through state statute.
But I thought the 12 mil was mandatory. That goes to the school foundation program.
That is a little bit separate. What happens each year is we receive the foundation guarantee, and the foundation guarantee is what's intended to make all districts whole, of which some districts in the state could earn tax revenues greater than what their foundation guarantee would be. Some districts would not earn tax revenue to totally fund what the foundation guarantee would be. we are such to where we're an entitlement district. Those districts with greater tax, and I'm referring to mineral taxes and property taxes. Those districts are recapture districts. So they actually contribute a portion of their property taxes back to the state of Wyoming and the foundation program. There's two different statutes. There's 2113-102, and that's the local for the 25 mil, and then there's 2113-201, which is for the 6 mil. We receive those property and mineral taxes, and then that is actually subtracted off of what we receive back in our entitlement. So if we go back to the revenue page, and we look here at the 25 mils, the top two lines, the 81110 and the 81111, and the 82110 and the 82111. Those four categories, plus, and there's a few other small dollars, plus what's in 83110 and 83120. Those four categories essentially make up our foundation guarantee. They subtract out what we've received in local revenue, local resources, and that's where we then get the 14.7 and the 5.5.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I was looking at the assessor's office, because they showed it was like 3.5 million, and nothing was matching up, so that's why I had questions about that. So
Perfect question.
where was that?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Uh-huh.
On the balance sheet, on the amount of cash reserve, it says we have like $4 million in it. But last year's budget showed that we had $5 million. I was just wondering where that $1 million. It's exactly $5 difference. So I just wondered about that.
Are you referring to the revenue and expenditure history?
It's the cash reserve.
Are you referring to my budget message or the revenue and expenditure history?
It's just the cash reserve. Yeah. I guess it said projected cash revenue.
Are you referring to the carryover?
Yes, there is.
That's showing at 12.51%.
That has the 12.
At the top, it says revenue / expenditure history.
Let me get to it. It is, it says for cash reserve, Goshen County School District number 1 is allowed to carry over 30% of the fiscal year. And last year we had 5.025 million, and this year we have 4.025 in the cash reserve to carry over.
That and so you're referencing the budget message. That at the top it says budget message. We have, when you look here,
On the bottom there, yeah.
our estimated cash reserve is the 4.052 million, and that's taking into account where we ended the year. That's that, and I keep mentioning it, but it was not something that was available to us when we did the preliminary budget. That additional 600,000 in insurance premiums, and so that's the biggest portion of that reduction, as well as when we take into account salary and benefits and all those kind of things, that this revenue and expenditure history is essentially a rolling historical looking at revenues and expenditures. We have actual and we have budgeted as long as we have financials. So we have that through FY 22, and then when the auditors come in here, we'll have FY 23 information. That we did go down a little bit.
If we didn't budget enough, we had to take some out of our cash reserves.
That's correct, because at the last meeting, we increased our general fund budget by 900,000 to accommodate expenditures.
Basically, what we're saying.
I don't think that's a fair statement, because we have cash reserve to accommodate it.
Okay. At this time, we will move to number 2, which is the public comment period of this meeting. So we're going to do this pretty much. If you want to do public comment or comment on our budget, come on up. Okay. So now we will close the hearing on the budget. And I will call the regular meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic. Okay, number 2 is adopt this agenda with any addenda. Are there any additions or corrections to this agenda? No, there are not. Okay. So do I have a motion to adopt this agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor in adopting the agenda as presented this morning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? We have an agenda. Letter C. Consider approval of mill levy taxes for the 23-24 fiscal year. Approve the mill levies at 1 mill recreation levy, half mill BOCES levy, and 25 mill tax levy. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the mill levy taxes for the 23-24 fiscal year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. Letter D, consider approval of district meal prices for the 23-24 school year. The recommendation is to approve increasing student, adult, and a la carte meal prices for the 23-24 school year as presented. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving district meal prices for the 23-24 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. Letter E, consider approval of the 2023-2024 budget. The recommendation is to approve the 23-24 fiscal year 24 budget as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Absolutely. I think we have another comment, but go ahead, Marcy.
I wanted to elaborate a little bit just based upon the last comment and the fact that if cash reserves are decreasing, are we overspending? In that we received the foundation guarantee from the legislature, and there are parties that believe that money is for the students, for the staff, for the buildings, and that there should not be a cash reserve. And there are others that think when we go through salary relations that maybe there's too much of a cash reserve. So I think that's a very difficult statement to really wrap your thought around. If we didn't have money to pay our obligations, we would be overspending. but I don't know that that's a question that can truly be answered based upon the manner in which we receive our funds.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason I had to say is we were looking at this budget, we see that we have increases in several different areas. We've seen that we've had to take money out of our cash reserve to pay some bill that we hadn't planned on. And we realize that in the future, we could probably lose some effort funds and grants, possibly we may not get that are available to us now. Also, I believe our people that represent the state of Wyoming, our Congress people, are also looking at cutting back on property taxes and stuff, which could also affect our money that's going to be coming in. I believe also they're also looking at things where possibly giving money to private schools, for people who have school choice things. We're going to come back again, which could affect our income on our school. And so I'm thinking maybe rather than spending all of our money and taking out of our cash reserve, we should be cutting back on our budget and putting money back into the cash reserve, because in future years, we may wish we had it, and it may not be there for that. And so I'm like, we're spending a lot of money and we're not cutting any areas. I can see we just keep spending more every year. I know prices go up, but unfortunately, we have to look at these things that we're losing some money, even though the prices are going up.
Any other comment?
Mr. Chair, if I may, do you have any suggestions on where those cuts should take place? Trustee Alexander.
Well, consider I've never been involved or brought into looking at where all the costs are. I'm just looking from an outside, looking at my finances, and I have to go into depth and say, where can I cut? So that is something I think we need to look at, possibly as a board. But that was just my idea, rather than keep increasing the spending, maybe we should look at it and decrease the spending until I actually see everything I guess.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I encourage you to be cautious with that cash reserve, in that right now we're allowed to carry 30%, and that seems like a lot. That is not an indefinite allocation. We as districts were allowed that 30% for a 5-year time frame, and it changed from 15 to that increase. It's going to go back as far as what the legislature has in place. It will go back to 15% in 2 years unless they make a change to that. So when I look at our percent of cash reserve at 12.5%, that's rather close to that 15%. If we were hovering around a 20% carryover, I would hate to be in a position where it dropped back to 15 and we had money, and unless we spent it, it would turn around and revert back to the state. So the legislature really sometimes puts us in difficult positions based upon how much money we can carry over from 1 year to the next. So I just urge you to see that cautionary aspect. This district has had times when cash reserve has been very, very minimal, and I would not want to get in that position at all. But I also would not want to be on the other side where we had too much money and we had to hurry up and spend it, or it was going to revert back to the state.
If I may, on one more thing on the budget pieces. I think sometimes, and I don't disagree with Trustee Alexander, that things within the budget certainly need to be reviewed, and worst case scenarios always need to be anticipated, and a balanced budget that is presented is extremely important. One thing to remember when we're talking about making ideas or statements like I would also in looking at rebuilding or increasing our carryover or reducing our budget. When we do things like that, that does mean cutting programs. That does mean cutting services when we look at cuts. It's very simplistic to look at saying, yes, we need to increase this budget, but we do need to be very specific. And over the next year, I don't disagree with Trustee Alexander. We need to be looking at closely, but those are very difficult decisions that the board will have to make in regards to cutting services, cutting programs, cutting positions. Those are things when we talk about it, it's not just a gloss over, we need to reduce our budget expenditures. So those are really important to be thinking about ahead of time and be thinking about where you feel you want further investigation as that information that you see or feel, asking those questions throughout the year saying, hey, is there a possibility of looking at some of this? As Trustee Sutcliffe and I have had some of those conversations over the last year. There are avenues to proceed, but it looks different. School looks different than it does. We can't have everything stay the same if we reduce the budget. And those are just things to think about in the planning process. But just wanted to point that out also and I appreciate Ms. Cates looking at this and presenting a balanced budget in regards to revenues and expenditures for this year, considering what we were able to accomplish regarding salary and relations, which a significant amount was increased for our staff members due to inflationary things that have happened outside of that, but still to be able to present a balanced budget as I'm looking across the state in regards to salary and relations and our increase comparison and our increase in expenditures. I appreciate that work in order to accomplish that. I just go ahead.
Well, I just had a question for you, Marcy or Ryan, and somebody, for both of you. So from the state, it used to be 15% after COVID got bumped up to 30 for a while. Projected probably, like you said, go back down to 15 for carryover. You know, if that's a percentage, what would be the minimum percentage you guys would feel safe? Like if something big happened, I mean, is it 5%? What's your bottom line? Like, okay, we're kind of in trouble if we go below what percentage?
Probably have different answers, but I'll let her go first.
As we work through salary relations, we often use the term of 10%. One of the pieces that we have that should provide a little bit of comfort is the fact that we don't have a lot of mineral taxes that we're working with. Those districts that have mineral taxes, they are being faced with some of those mineral companies going bankrupt or delaying the receipt of those payments. So they put a budget together, and then when they think that they're going to get that mineral money, it doesn't come through. So that really is the biggest item where that carryover is very crucial. In a perfect world, you would want 3 months worth of operating expenses.
I would agree with Marcy on that number of 10%. One thing that I've greatly appreciated in living in Wyoming is the 15% set by the state. Other states do not have that in practice. The previous state that I was superintendent in Iowa did not have a limit. There were many districts that were 25, 30%. And I think that is unfair to a school district is not a bank. The idea is not to hold on to those dollars. It's to expend those dollars in ways that benefit our students and our community and do that in the best way possible. I think that also is the job of many of our state programs, to not have an abundance of funds just sitting there. That's not why we pay taxes. We pay taxes for those services. And I think 10% is a good number to be safe and secure as a district and financially sound. And I also think that it behooves us to expend those dollars in a way that benefits our students and our community. And that's about that number, which helps us as a district provide what our responsibility is.
So I just wanted to add, I agree with trustee Alexander that there's on the horizon at some point where you're gonna have to look at cuts and in the budget. But those are tough decisions. It's gonna equate to people. It's like Mr. Kramer said, it's gonna equate to programs. It's gonna equate to a lot of things that are currently available in this community that will no longer be available. So when that time comes, it's gonna be a very tough decision for the board on a lot of those things. But I will agree that at some point, we're likely gonna have to look into that stuff.
As we say, we look into something, maybe you're getting a better bang for the buck sometimes. I think sometimes we take the more expensive route rather than something that still do the job for less money. And I'm concerned about the raise of the budget also means probably next year we're going to be raising the tuition here because we're taking a percentage, but it's one 1,625 of the total budget. So much per student, and so since the budget went up, tuition can go up too next year. Is that correct?
So, you know, I was just gonna say that is actually our next agenda item is that, Chris, so we'll have a lot more information on that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other discussion on fiscal year 24 budget as presented? All those in favor of approving or adopting the 24 budget as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Item carries. Letter F is consider approval of student tuition for the 2023-2024 or 2022-2023 school year. Previous tuition rates were for 22-23, $18,649. For 21-22, $18,807. And for 2020-2021, for $18,115. The recommendation is to approve the student tuition rate for the 23-24 school year in the amount of $20,271. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Marcy, would you give us some information on this, please?
Sure. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the tuition that we're required to set is for those students that are living outside of Goshen County and in particular outside of the state of Wyoming. So these are families or individuals who are not presently paying property taxes, and those funds are not rolling through the foundation program. We do not charge a tuition rate to Goshen County School District students. These are just students living outside of our boundaries.
Predominantly outside of the state of Wyoming, correct?
Yep.
And do you recall when was the last time we collected any tuition from any student?
In 15 years, we've not collected tuition.
And this rate is set by a formula through the state, is that correct?
The formula is established in state statute, and we're required to approve and document it at this time each year, should we have an individual willing and wanting to pay that.
And it's also, it has to do with our ADM. So the increase in the ADM also increases the tuition, essentially.
Yep, it's our prior year's expenditures divided by prior year income.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the student tuition for the 22-23 school year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. Letter G, consider adoption of WBE IDEA Part B LEA assurances. The recommendation is to adopt the WBE IDEA Part B local education agency assurances as presented. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just wanted to kind of point out, this is something that's brand new. We have not had this as part of our special education programs. But the Wyoming Department of Education, in formulating some requirements, just asked us to have these assurances. You'll notice in your packet, the red number behind each assurance. Those are the policy or board policy that references that, or the information on how we address those different areas. And so you'll notice that Trina Nickel, our Office of Special Services Director, went through each of these and identified where this correlates to what we are doing locally and how we are meeting those requirements. And so they'll all, about 90%, as you can see, are specifically addressed in board policy relating to the requirements that are already in place.
I'd like to just say thank you for that. I was wondering about that when I was looking at the packet, so thank you for that. That was a question, everything else, so thank you. Mr. Kramer, what part were we weren't in our policies that this was done?
So you'll notice, like, for instance, on page 2 and 34 CFR, about 3/4 of the way down the page, 34 CFR 300.145 methods of insurance services, contracts available through the business office. We don't specifically have a policy that addresses that, but what it's asking is that there's an interagency agreement or other mechanism for interagency coordination in effect between each public agency described in the subparagraphs. And so that's more of a practice as opposed to a policy. Really, it comes along with how we do business. Do we have agreements in place? Yes, we do. We keep them in the business office. They're on file and available upon any request. Or like right below it, we also have 4111 board policy and state statute addresses this. So it's really something that upon their review, they needed to have in place to say, yes, there are assurances that all of these things are being accomplished. It used to be through a checkbox procedure on the application. Now they've kind of ramped that up and wanted board involvement on that also.
So to your point or your example, for the methods of insurance services, that will suffice and meet that criteria for that assurance?
Correct. They just want to be able to have an idea that you are responsible for keeping these under record, and so records to the business office. And we could have done that even if we didn't have policy. The reference that any narrative is acceptable.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the WBE IDEA Part B LEA assurances, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Item carries. With that, that is the last thing I have on my agenda today, so we will be adjourned.